All right, to get started on my MIDI track, I'm going to drop in an operator, just my default operator patch. In my default operator patch, I'm going to adjust a couple of things. I'm going to adjust the wave to be an 8-bit sine wave, just because I like a little bit of crunchiness in it. I'm going to go to the spread control, add a little bit of stereoizing detune effect, and then go back to oscillator A's envelope and put a little bit of tail on the sound. A little bit more. About 400 milliseconds. That works. Next, I'm going to go to the Max for Live tab in Live's browser and go to the Max MIDi effect drop-down menu and take my default Max MIDi effect device and drop it onto my first track, the same one with the operator. Then I want to hit the Edit button on my Max MIDi effect device. I'm going to navigate to the Max window itself. And I want to delete these comment boxes that are giving me a little bit of information about the objects that are in my default Max MIDi effect. I'm going to leave MIDi in and MIDi out alone, but delete the rest of the comment boxes by dragging and selecting them and then just hitting delete. Now I'm going to start by creating a first set of objects. The first is going to be a swatch. The swatch is a color chooser that outputs RGB and alpha values. Underneath that, I want to choose or create a prepend object, and I want to enter in the argument BG fill color after prepend. Connect the left outlet of swatch to the left inlet of prepend. And then underneath my prepend BG fill color, I'm going to create a panel. Connect the left outlet of prepend to the left inlet of panel. And now, my swatch chooses the color of the panel. It displays what's being chosen in the swatch. Next to my swatch object, I'm going to create a new message box just to look at what's coming out of swatch here. We can see these values here. So you see their floating point numbers between 0 and 1, red, green, blue, and alpha, which is the saturation of the colors. Now this is just to kind of observe what's going on. I'm going to delete that message box and create an unpack 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot. Now this is going to allow me to unpack those values into 3 individual floating point numbers from 0 to 1. I'm going to ignore the alpha value right now. So this is my RGB value coming out of unpack here. Underneath unpack, I'm going to create a scale device with the argument 0 dot 1 dot, then 36, 110 dot. That's going to take my number from 0 to 1 and scale it to a MIDi note number range that's relatively useful to me, 36 to 110. Left outlet of unpack, connect to the left inlet of scale. Underneath that, I'm going to create a number object just to see the MIDi note number coming out of scale and connect the outlet of scale to the inlet of number. And now when I click on my colors and swatch, I can see the MIDi note number that's generated from my red value, the first object in that list. Underneath my number box, I'm going to create a make note object with the argument 100, 100. That's going to be my velocity and the duration of the number. Velocity of 100, duration of 100 milliseconds. Connect the number box to the left inlet of make note. And that's going to create a note on-off pair that's going to be useful to me when I create my last note out object that's going to send the MIDi note to live. Connect the outlet of make note, left outlet to the left inlet of note out, and the right outlet of make note to the middle inlet of note out. That's going to send my velocity. Now, as I click and swatch, I create MIDi notes that are going to play my operator device. All right, so we've got to start. We've got some noise. That's good. Now next, I want to select my scale, number, make note, and note out objects and hold down Option and drag those over twice to create 2 copies of that. Saves me a little bit of time in creating these MIDi notes because I also have the G and B values from my unpack. So I'm going to take the middle outlet of unpack, put that in the left inlet of my second scale, and the right outlet of unpack and put that in the left inlet of my third scale. Now all three RGB values are creating MIDi notes. Now, while this is interesting to be able to click on this and create some 3 notes at a time, it'd be nice to be able to sequence this and interact with it with a little bit more movement and musicality. So I'm going to select my objects I have right here that are creating the notes just by clicking and dragging to select them. And I want to move them over just a little bit to create some room and keep it zoomed in enough that everyone can see. And now I want to create a new Metro 8in object. So the Metro object with an argument of 8in is going to create 8 notes based on Live's tempo. Hit T to create a new toggle object, and that toggle I can use to turn on and off the metronome manually. Hit C to create a new comment box, and I'm going to enter in the text sequencer on, just so I know what this toggle switch does. Connect the outlet of my toggle switch to the left inlet of Metro. Now I'll activate the Metro whenever Live's transport is running when I turn on my toggle switch. And next I'm going to create a new live.tab object. This live.tab object by default has an enumeration of 1, 2, 3. I'm going to hit the inspector with the little I, or if I hit Command I when that object is selected and highlighted blue there. And I'm going to navigate down to the range or enumeration. And instead of 1, 2, 3, well, actually first, let's go ahead and rename this. I want to make the long name sequencer rate. The short name sequencer rate as well. Oh, type that right. And then I'm going to change the range enumeration to note values starting with 32in, 16in, 8in, 4in, 2in, 1in, and then a couple of dotted values as well, 8nd and 4nd. And you can arrange those in any order you like. I just like putting the dotted ones outside the more square values. Adjust that to where I can see all of my note values pretty well. I'm going to take the middle outlet of my live.tab, because that's going to actually send the note value symbol itself, and I'm going to connect that to the right inlet of Metro 8in. Now my metronome will change as I command click on my live.tab. Underneath my Metro object, I'm going to create a new random object with the argument 127. I'm going to connect the left outlet of Metro 8in to the left inlet of random 127. Underneath my random object, I'm going to create a new divide 127 dot object. This is going to get my MIDi random note numbers into floating point numbers that'll be good to send back into Swatch here in a second. Now I'm going to select both my random and divide 127 dot, hold down Option, and click and drag those to create some copies. As remember, I've got to create an RGB list of values. Connect the outlet of Metro to both left inlets of all 3 of my random 127 objects. And next I'm going to create a pack 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot object to put my random numbers into a list that the Swatch will understand. Connect the outlets of all my divide 127 dots into the inlets of pack 0 dot 0 dot 0 dot, and then the outlet of pack into the left inlet of my Swatch object. Now I need to go to live and I need to make sure my transport is running in live program itself. Push play on the transport in live. Go back to max. And now when I turn on the toggle switch, I get random note values that are corresponding with the random color values. So the random values I'm sending to the colors are giving me random MIDi notes based on those color combinations. The combination of red, green, and blue, sound and color. I can lock my patcher, test all its functionality real quick. Everything seems to be working okay. But I want to add another layer into this to create just a little bit more movement to the sound in combination with this time-based sequencer that I've got. So here underneath my scaling objects and my note creators, I'm going to create a new phasor tilde. It's going to make a sawtooth wave for me. I want to enter in the argument 0.5 just as a default. And the phasor is actually creating an audio signal, a sawtooth wave signal here. We're going to use that signal, translate it into numbers with the number tilde object. Now we're going to use that signal and we're going to create some movement in the way that those colors are created, which will then create movement in the way our MIDi notes are created and the actual music that we're going to hear. So when I connect the outlet of phasor tilde to the number tilde object on the left inlet, I can see the ramp values as the sawtooth moves. If I go to the right outlet of my number tilde object with the message box, I can see that it's sending me the numbers. But if I go to the left outlet, that's actually sending me a signal. I want to capture the numbers from my phasor object with the number tilde object. So I'll use the right outlet of number tilde. So I'm going to select both of those and option drag one more time to create 3 of them. Now above my phasor object, I'm going to create a live.dial. This is going to be used for a little bit of control. My live.dial, I'm going to go to the inspector for, again, selecting it. I'm going to change the range or enumeration from -1 dot to 1 dot. This is going to give me some nice floating point values for the phasor control. I want to rename this live.dial R. You might guess that this is going to be set up to control R, G, and B. Connect the left outlet of my live.dial to the left inlet of phasor, and then option drag that first dial over so I have 2 more copies of it. I'm going to change the name of my second dial to G. I'm going to change the name of my third dial to B. Connect the outlets of both my G and B dials to their respective phasors. Now I can lock my patcher and see what happens when I go into negative values. The ramp direction of the phasor changes. And so I can use these to combine the movement of the phasor to create some different color value selections, but in a way that creates a lot of movement to my sound, a very glissando style movement. So underneath my phasor objects, I'm going to create a new pack 0 dot, 0 dot, 0 dot, and take the right outlets of each of my number tilde objects and go into the corresponding pack inlets. Now take the outlet of pack and put that into the inlet of my swatch. Now, that's creating a lot of movement already, but we want to be able to turn that on and off. The phaser objects are just going to run in the background. So I'm going to create a new G switch object. One of the most helpful little max objects there is. I'm going to take the outlet of pack and put it into the rightmost inlet of G switch. That is the current inactive inlet. As you can see, the little routing cable inside of G switch there is on the inlet 1 and not inlet 2. Next, I'll create a new toggle switch with the letter T. Then create a new comment box with the letter C. I'm going to call this seesaw. Why not? Kind of reminds me of a seesaw, this up and down little movement. Connect my toggle switch to the control inlet, which is the leftmost inlet of my G switch. And connect the outlet of my G switch to the left inlet of my swatch. Now I have control over the seesaw effect. I'm going to lock my patcher and listen to the changes that happen when I change the RGB values from positive to negative. And observe what kind of color choices it makes. You can combine the sequencer and the seesaw with some really interesting rhythmic effects. Now I'm going to unlock my patcher and I'm going to add a few objects to the presentation so that I can adjust its view as it shows up as a plugin or as a device inside of Ableton Live. So I'm going to select my swatch, panel, seesaw on, toggle switch, RGB dials, live.tab, sequencer on comment box, and sequencer on toggle switch. Right click over any one of them and go to add to presentation. Now I'll see the ones with the red outline are all going to be added to my presentation. So they will show up when I go into presentation mode. When I click on the bottom icon to enter into presentation mode or Command Option E, I'm going to navigate to the inspector and open up the Patcher Inspector. Towards the middle bottom, there's the option to open in presentation. I want to check that box. And now my patcher will open in presentation mode inside of Live. So how I arrange the objects in presentation mode, of course, is how they're going to show up in Live. So I'm going to move these around just a bit to create a very quick and dirty way of displaying these inside of Live as a plugin. And of course, you can arrange these in any way you choose. Of course, changing colors and fonts and things like that. But for right now, I'm just going to very quickly make a very fast and dirty arrangement. All right, I'm going to lock my patcher. And I can go ahead and save this and close it. Just something you should be doing the whole time. Just call it Color Me Bad. Why not? Now I go back into Live, and I can see that my Color Me Bad Max MIDi effect is ready to go. I can go ahead and give it a test, and get to listen to how it interacts with Operator. And pay attention to how the colors are affecting the sound and the feedback and the way that the two work together in hearing and in seeing. I'm going to add a ping pong delay effect after my operator here, just to give myself a little bit of extra space around the sound. Short bell-like sounds combined with delay or space effects work pretty well with this color sequencer. I'm also going to choose a scale device, navigating down to the F major preset, and I'm going to drop that in after my color sequencer. Whoop, go ahead and get it actually in there right after my color sequencer. And this will make the note values a little more consonant, a little more musical to me now. because it's forcing it all into the key of F, although it is still a pretty wide range and randomized set of sounds. It's now a little bit more musically sensible though. I'll add in a second little oscillator here to my operator. Now let the sequencer guide you into some new sonic territory, some new ways of creating these sounds and interacting with them. I'm going to create a new MIDi track after my color sequencer track and set its input to be from my color sequencer track. This will allow me to see and record the MIDi note generation that my color sequencer is making. When I record a new MIDi clip, now I'm going to be able to see what kind of notes are being created and even go back and edit those if I wanted to. Those are the notes that my color sequencer is writing in. Some beautiful symmetry that happens whenever I do this with just the seesaw effect. Don't be afraid to let the visual cues affect the way that you are creating the sounds. And don't be afraid to let the sounds interact with the visual cues in ways that can be interesting for your audience, for yourself as a composer. Because it's Max, you can continue to explore and make these values your own. Try new things out. Most of all, have fun making music. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.